Hello, my name is Suzanne, and today I'm pleased to have with me Caroline, whom I met in an astrology group I'm a part of called Age of Aquarius. Caroline is one of the main contributors of that group, where she presents the astrological energy of each new moon, and it's a perfect fit for her since she has Neptune conjunct moon in her first house, which we'll talk about shortly. I have asked her if she would have liked to contribute to this interview series that I put together about our journey through midlife. If you happened upon this video and haven't checked out my introduction to this series, I'd encourage you to do so. You can find it in the main midlife playlist on my YouTube channel. As a quick reminder, I'm going to be talking with Caroline about her soul's journey, what she thinks her soul's themes are in this lifetime, and how this shows up in her natal chart. We'll also be reviewing the major midlife astrological transits that happen in your mid 30s to mid 40s and talk about how these transits are helping to push Caroline into more fully embodying her authentic self and the path her soul was meant to take in this lifetime. She's still knee deep in this time period. So while she might not have had the time to reflect as much as the other people I've interviewed, I think she'll give us a great perspective of what it's like to be in the fire. So Caroline, before we dive into your natal chart and your major soul themes, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your background and what brought you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this. So my background is I'm originally from Montreal. I was born in Canada. Interestingly enough, my ascendant is right on the ascendant of the United States. If you looked at the USA chart, it's like 9 degrees of Sag. And when Pluto transited that area, I moved to the US. Yeah. Isn't that funny?
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's so funny. So I think I was 20 years old and I came to school here and I became a chiropractor and I never went back. So I've been here for 20 some years now. And I don't practice anymore. I mean, I'll still see a few patients here and there from home. But like my journey sort of took me on these other little business tangents. And 4 years ago, really right now, the path is astrology. Like this, the universe couldn't be any clearer. All the other doors have slammed shut. This is it. It's like, and I'm kicking and screaming and then this is what it is. So
cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of, and we'll go over like the transits that all made it happen.
Okay, great. I just wanted to point out that you also do Akashic Records analysis. Is that how you frame it? You're an analyst, Akashic Records analyst?
Like reading Akashic Records. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because we'll go over it, but I have Venus directly on my south node, right? Like not 5 degrees apart, like on the same degree. And that's like the hallmark of that is like a rapid spiritual awakening.
Oh, nice.
And we'll go, when Uranus transited that's what it did.
Oh, okay.
All these gifts opened up.
I'm so excited. I love to interview people who are a little bit, I like interviewing both, but it's helpful to have somebody who really knows their chart and their astrology, because it helps just frame the conversation so much easier and better for me. I'm new at astrology as well, but I've been learning so much. I've been diving deep in, and I prepare so much for these interviews, and I learn so much. So I'm really excited to talk to you about everything. I'm going to share my screen really quick, and we're just going to hop into your natal chart. And okay, let me just annotate here because this makes it easier. So you're a Pisces sun, and like you said, you're a Sagittarius rising and you have a Sagittarius moon, but we're not really going to focus too much on your personal planets, although they might come into the conversation as we're talking about the slower moving planets. I'm really going to focus on major overall themes and these slower moving planets like Pluto, Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus, because these are the major transits that we're going to be talking about. And these slower moving planets move through our chart, of course, very slowly. And so they have a sizable impact on our our life. And while these planets, if you don't know much about astrology, they are similar in astrological sign to a whole generation, like the Pluto in Libra. I'm part of the Pluto in Libra generation, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means, but how it differentiates in people's chart is where it shows up in by house, and also what communication it makes to other planets in a person's house. And I just wanted to point out that I am using the Porphyry house system. And I'm using this house system because that's what evolutionary astrologists use. I'm very into it, evolutionary astrology, because it talks a lot about Pluto and the nodes and our soul's development. I'm really into that. I usually use Placidus because they're very, very similar to the house systems, and it usually doesn't make a difference, but it made a difference in Caroline's chart. And I wanted to point out this house system because Caroline does prefer just recently the whole house system, but we'll talk a little bit about the nuances of that and why I chose this specific house system, because it showed me some patterns and themes that showed up that I didn't see in the whole house system. But I think everybody has their own way of viewing their chart, and you should use whatever fits for you. But for this conversation, we're going to just talk about it in this house system. So the themes that I really wanted to point out, which is a big theme in your chart. First of all, we'll talk about this, is basically you have a lot of fire energy in your chart. You have a lot of masculine energy and a lot of mutable energy. And I thought that was very interesting because of this Neptune moon conjunct in your first house. When you first come into view, and I think people will probably agree with me as you're talking, when you first kind of appear and people are getting to know you, you really see this Neptune moon conjunction in the first house. When I saw you, I thought it was very perfect that you presented the astrological themes for the new moon because of this conjunction. When I saw you, I was like, oh my God, what a beautiful being. You're so angelic. That's just immediately what I felt when you talk, very sensitive. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, there's this beauty queen in front of me and just so compassionate. So this is very apparent, I think, especially when you're on video. I'm sure that people feel this when they meet you. And that makes sense because it's in your first house. And what it says, about Neptune and Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, but it's very spiritual. But it is a fire sign that makes you very spiritual minded and also a journeyer in spiritual matters. But what it is, it makes you seem to be, or you are, a sensitive and imaginative person. Your soft and dreamlike nature is best expressed through creative and artistic mediums. And it's conjunct your moon, so you have a lot of compassion and kindness that just shows up really just when people meet you. I think you're highly intuitive. Basically what they say about Neptune in the first house, and it's like on steroids when it's conjunct your moon, is you're very highly Neptunian, and that makes you highly intuitive. That's also expressed with your Sun and Mercury in Pisces, because that is ruled by Neptune. So you're basically a Neptunian being, which I think that you can really feel when you meet you. It also is a path of the heart. You are, which is very funny, you're a practitioner of touch therapy. You were a chiropractor, so it's funny how this really shows up. You can be a medical intuitive, even if you're not now. That's how it shows up in people's charts. It's square your sun in Pisces. You're a very sensitive and soft person, and you could be overwhelmed by your empathy and the suffering that you see in the world. I'd love to talk about that. You may be unsure of yourself at times. You may feel like people don't really understand your true nature. I see that a lot with Neptune in the first house, especially when it's near the ascendant, that you're not really sure. Sometimes you're not really sure about your own self and your own nature. You just don't. Sometimes there's feelings of confusion around your identity, and that's because you're very intuitive, and sometimes you can be absorbed into other people and to the circumstances around you. I think I see that people kind of grow into themselves when they're older, and I'll show you this other themes that I see that in with your slower moving planets. It's square also in Mercury because you have the conjunct to your sun. And so sometimes it's difficult for you to difficult using powers of discrimination, or your thoughts and opinions are vague and confused and difficult to pin down sometimes. You're very imaginative and can probably be lost in that. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about this, and then we'll move on to Pluto.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, so much to say. On a more like practical, like 3D level, I will say I found this to be interesting. Like Neptune on my ascendant, Neptune rules ballet, and I've been asked my whole life if I was a ballet dancer, and I've never done ballet ever. So like
I can see that.
when I understood that, I was like, oh, that's where that comes from. Moon in the first is very hard for me to hide my feelings. Like it's just
Yes.
that one is just like, I'm like an open book. So yeah. And then one of the kind of, I want to say like shadow side of that Neptune moon. And I say this with so much love and light, like this is about my mother, because I know I've done it as a mother too, is that I remember as a child, like to protect me, like let's say I would ask like, what's wrong? She'll go, oh, nothing, nothing. Like we tend to lie to our children to protect them, but it confused my intuition quite a bit because Neptune can have, that confusion. And I would not say I was an intuitive my whole life. Like I was very confused. Like, was that like, like self-doubt, like constantly second guessing.
Yeah.
And then that just cleared up in the recent years. But yeah, that's interesting that kind of, yeah. And whenever like Neptune square Mercury, can be like a little bit of like, I've had issues, and I'm saying this in all honesty, with like lying. Like I've gotten in trouble as a child for telling the truth, and you quickly learn to like buffer it and, cut it 100 different ways to soften things up to not hurt people's feelings so they don't explode at you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that has been, and now I've gotten much more grounded and much more like, okay, if they overreact, that's them being triggered. It's not
Yeah.
on me.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting, because we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the transits, because I think that shows up a little bit in how you find your voice, basically.
Yeah.
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 Um, so I also wanted to just point out that let me just make sure I'm having all of my pages. Yes. Okay. So I just wanted to also point out there's a lot of polarities in your chart. There's a lot of, you've got all of these planets in Libra that are opposing all of these, planets and nodes in Aries. You've got your Saturn in Leo, which is not opposing Aquarius, but it's also a polar opposite energy. You've got Taurus in Jupiter, and I'm not opposing Uranus in Scorpio, but it's just, there's a lot of like kind of oppositional energy here, which is very interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But before we go on, I want to talk about Pluto in Libra. So I know a lot about Pluto and Libra. I have Pluto in the 12th house, though, not in the 10th house. But Pluto and Libra is part of my generation, our generation. And it's really about, we're learning to understand our own individuality in the social context. And we're learning lessons of equality, relativity, and listening. And with these lessons, they have been learning how to participate in relationship as an equal. And I'm sure you know this too. That's very dear to my heart, and some of the things that I've been learning in relationship to others. And it does not mean just your personal relationships. Like you have Pluto in your 10th house. So it can show up in a variety of relationships, but equality in the workplace, equality in our friendships, equality in our romantic relationships. So that as a generation, we're learning more about that. And for you, and we could talk about this because I know in the whole house system, it's not in the 10th house, but for you, you're learning to integrate your own philosophy and identity within the framework of society, your social position or function. And I thought this was very interesting because the polarity of the 10th house is the fourth house. And I know that you said that you related to your fourth house a lot, which I thought could be this polarity. So it's really the evolutionary intent for you is, or we can talk about what this means to you, is to learning to develop your own internal security or personal fulfillment that is not bound up or linked to the need for success or social position. So you have had evolutionary lessons from past lives or even this life of really wanting or needing to be of social, having social prominence or status. Some people have managed in past lives to manipulate the systems to their own advantage. And I thought this was interesting, and I'll talk to you more about it. But Venus on your same degree of your south node could mean in past lives that you have married for status. I've heard that come up. Could be, I'm not sure if that relates to you or if you feel that that's true. And karmically, you might be blocked by society from achieving your goals, or you might have blocked yourself. Like you said in your Akashic records, you said that you took a vow of poverty in past lives, in a past life. So we can talk about that more. So you could be blocking yourself, or other people are blocking you to, and it's for the purpose of learning to achieve your personal security within yourself without regards to the success or whatever you perceive as success. You may have, as a child, I'd love to talk about your childhood because of all of the South Node with conjunct your Chiron and your Lilith, about it could also mean that you had a strict upbringing, or you had an upbringing where one of your parents left and your mom or your dad left and didn't take responsibility for you. And so this is really teaching you to reflect on your own standards and your own standards of conduct, and really reflect and learn about that. So I'd love to take a minute and have you give me feedback about what that means to you.
Yeah. So, so it's interesting because like I've played around with Placidus and whole sign house, and I can't explain it, but there's parts of my chart that resonate more with Placidus, and there's parts of my chart that resonate more with whole sign. But like, for example, my Chiron, when I took Astro Butterfly's Chiron course, I was elbow deep in Placidus, and it lands in my fourth house. And it's honestly what makes the most sense, because the last Saturn Pluto conjunction, not the one we just had, the one before, happened at 29 degrees of Libra, directly opposing that Chiron in the fourth house. And that's when my parents got divorced. Like I was 7.
Okay.
And then like the next time that Saturn came around, when I was like 31 and it triggered my Pluto, that's when I got divorced. So,
wow.
Pluto and Libra, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
Interesting. But yeah. So, and I think the most difficult thing about my parents' divorce, people always asked me, like, how was your parents' divorce? And we at the same time we moved 5 hours away. Like, we moved to an English speaking city because I was raised in Montreal, so French is my first language. Like the trauma of the move far overshadowed, the what I had to deal with. But then I went from seeing my dad to just once a month, as opposed to, like, it was a lot of changes all at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Because I'd love to switch. I was going to go to Saturn, but I would love to switch to this north node and south node um because this also, the Chiron and all of this lined up can be early childhood pain
Yeah.
in the fifth house, because it is related to childhood, um but also, because it's lined up with, so I guess you could probably interpret it in the fifth house just as well as in the fourth house that way. But I find that when you do the house switches, is that themes show up, similar themes show up no matter how much you dice things. It's just they show up in slightly different activations. But I'd love to talk a little bit about that. um it's interesting to me too. Oh, I wanted to just mention this really quickly, because I also I read Jeffrey Green's Pluto book, and a lot of the things that I get about Pluto are in his book. And he says that Pluto in the 10th house could mean that you switch genders in your most previous lifetime. And I thought it was very interesting to see all the masculine energy in your chart because of that. So I wanted to point that out because I thought that was very interesting. But
Definitely.
I wanted to talk about this this energy in Aries and the story that it tells. Um, you don't usually come into your own until later in life. You can probably say that that's true as you are coming into your own, I would say, from what I've heard from you now, and finding your real true destiny. Um, in a past life or earlier life, you were concentrated on personal self-expression, risk-taking, and whatever brought joy and pleasure. And sometimes that was too much and changed your life forever. And what you're doing now is you're being called to work with other people and finding your true path in order to fill your hopes and dreams in relationship to other people. You're not a solo agent anymore, but you're meant to interact with others, and to do the things that are most important to you. I wanted to talk about the South Node in Venus a little bit before I let you talk about this, but you have experienced a heavy emphasis on relationships in past lives, which is somehow curtailed in this lifetime. One of your life lessons is to find the right balance when it comes to personal relationships. From a young age, you start to learn the ebb and flow of love relationships, the talents that you innately have, and the art of give and take. Sometimes you might cling too closely to relationships, or at other times you might push people away. You need to make sure that you do not sacrifice your sense of purpose within key relationships, and submerge your own destiny with other people. And once again, this is really just understanding relationships, and it's one of your life lessons. And it could also be applied to the exchange of emotions or values and money with loved ones. Venus conjunct Chiron, you may experience pain in early relationships. And this could be as early as your parents, of course. And in that seventh year is really when um, your 7 to 14 years is when you come into your emotional maturity. And so that divorce at 7 years really rocked your world, I would say. I can only
Yeah.
imagine, because that's when you're learning how to respond to your emotions, basically. And then I your Venus is conjunct your Chiron, and so I went over that. You have You're vulnerable to emotional pain. It's conjunct South Node. As a child, you may have suffered, which we just talked about. And Lilith is conjunct Chiron in your South Node. You have the potential to become a powerful ally with your own, um, to and advocate for the healing and transformation of others. But first, you must deal with your own suppressed wounds and traumas. You have a great inner strength in your rejection of social norms. I'd love to talk about that because the Uranus in the 11th house also speaks to that. That you have you grow into self-acceptance and your own sexuality. You aren't blocked from using your power because you don't care who's intimidated. I'd love to hear a little bit more about all of this combination of energy here. It's just so concentrated there.
It is so concentrated. So this is where, again, the course, the Astro Butterfly course, helped me realize so much about this. So I had a very traumatic birth, like straight coming in. That Black Moon Lilith Chiron. I was born with forceps, and they broke one of my clavicles and failed to diagnose it. They just sent me home like that. And it took my mom, she says, like, it took her 6 weeks to realize, like, hey, something's not right. Every time we pick her up, she's screaming her head off. I think it was my grandmother who told her, you need to take her back in for a checkup. Something's not right. It was the 70s.
Oh my God. You poor
I
thing.
laugh about it now, but it created an abandonment wound, right? Like, if your loved ones don't understand that there's something wrong with you. And throughout my entire life, like, the theme with men in my life, because well, we'll get to that when we get to that, but has been like, I feel, because I have like the electromagnetics, keep attracting men who have like commitment issues. Like, it goes hand in hand. Like, it just,
Yeah.
So yes, so that's what that is. That's what
Oh my
that is.
God, it's so interesting because people say, like, because, of course we're talking about past lives, but we're also talking about previous lives as far as like, because time is so relative. So previous lives, meaning previous past, really recent past lives, which is when you're a child, like as you're growing up. I find that in my own chart. I'm like, yeah, that could make sense, but it also makes sense in my my early growing up years. So you really did have that like right away.
Right away. Entering.
Entering. So, and that could have been set up based on, your growth in this life, based on past lives, but it can also mean, like, you don't have, what I'm trying to explain is that you don't have to buy into past lives. You could just say, this is what happened in earlier life, and I'm growing toward this other energy. And a lot of people, I think, mistake your south node also as like leaving behind your south node to embrace your north node. It's really not. It's integrating your lessons. It's integrating your pain and your trauma and using that, like your Chiron, to help other people like you're doing now. You've built up so much, so many lessons from that period, probably even more, that now you're kind of growing into being that person that can help other people heal from their wounds. Like we just mentioned. I'd love to hear about your vow of your Akashic records, and your vow of poverty, a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I just want to finish up. I forgot to mention that, like, sort of one of the consequences of that is I've always, if I became a chiropractor. Like, I've always kind of had a little something against the medical system. Like, I'm very holistic. I'm as holistic as it gets. And as part of my whole midlife transit, I'm being faced with that right now. Like, I may need their help. So,
Oh
yeah,
God.
yeah, yeah. But it's been a theme in my life, not, and that could be, that Uranus in the 11th, and it's also that Mars in Aquarius. I've got that rebel, like,
Yes.
and it's definitely been, I'm off the beaten path when it comes to health. Like, I'm
Okay.
very holistic, and that's interesting that that's been an effect of that. But yeah, so yeah, back to your question. One of my favorite astrologers is Jan Spiller. Like, Caro Martin did an interview with someone who worked under her on our last month, I think, interview in the Age of Aquarius. And she has a wonderful book called Spiritual Astrology, which is all about your prenatal solar and lunar eclipses. And I could not see this vow of poverty really anywhere in the chart. Um, well, yeah, Saturn in the eighth. It's in the ninth and whole sign. But anyway, but so my prenatal lunar eclipse. So lunars are the lessons that you're learning in this lifetime, and solar is a gift that you have in this lifetime that needs to be expressed.
Mm.
And my prenatal lunar eclipse is in the sign of Taurus. It's at 14 degrees of Taurus. And if it's in Taurus, I mean, the chapter starts with these people have usually incarnated with a vow of poverty. Like there's some sort of subconscious belief that making money is not spiritual. Therefore, and it's true, I've had a lifetime of like, every time I'd have it, something would happen. Divorce, or, like it was just, and that's the thing about vows of poverty that you'll see in the Akashic records is very hard to accumulate wealth until
Yeah.
it's cleared, because
Okay.
it's like, it's not like the subconscious wins.
Yeah.
And if there's a belief in there that's, it's not spiritual to have money, the subconscious, no matter how hard it's the subconscious wins. So
Yes.
got to clear that up.
So that also, I didn't say
Yeah.
this because there was so many things that I wrote about Pluto in your 10th house, which is you may come into this life with a lot of guilt, and it's not even rationally explained, but because you may have abused, this is the theory that you may have abused your power in previous lifetimes. So there's so it's a kind of a similar theme, and it might, it might be just that you've done it for another reason, but that's the theory of Pluto in the 10th house as well, is that you have a lot of guilt that you're atoning for in this lifetime, and so sometimes you block like your own needs for success. And once you have your security, once you learn that that you are inherently valuable without needing to be successful or have the trappings of money, then they say in this theory that you will come into your success. You are virtually, I mean, I know that you said, oh my God, it hasn't been proven to me yet. And I know you have your, in this house anyway. And I think I believe this because you are a manifester. You have the abilities to be successful, and I think you will be successful. Now, I don't know how much money you'll have, but I see my husband also has a Pluto in his 10th house, and I married him and he was making nothing when I married him, and now he's the one that's making all of the money here in our household right now,
That's
because
so
I'm doing
awesome.
a career transition. But it took him a while to figure out like where he fit into the realm of society. So I just point that out, that I think that you will, and it's just a matter of time.
That's so interesting that you say that, because my prenatal solar eclipse, which is the gift, is at 0 degrees of Scorpio, which is I'm here to teach the proper use of power to others. And so, well, that suggests a past life of improper use of power. So
Yes.
that's so funny that, yeah, it's double showing up double.
That's interesting. Okay, this is awesome. This is why I love astrology, because I love to see pattern. I love to see, like, I love this exercise of being able to write. I collect a lot of, I'm not proficient enough. I think it's probably a lot of insecurity on
You
my
will.
part. But it's like, I like to collect all of the evidence. I like to research, and then I like to find the patterns. I really love kind of that pattern recognition. And I love to dig deep into psychology. I have Uranus in the first house and Pluto in the 12th house. So I'm really into the psychology and really wanting to understand what
Yes.
motivates people and how, so this is a great exercise for me. I love this. So let's just talk about your Saturn in Leo, and in this house system, it's in the 8th house. Now, there's a natural polarity here with Saturn in Leo, because and it's trine your Neptune and your ascendant. And this makes you appear or to come across as reserved to other people. But there's like an inner drama queen that's like wanting to like come out of your shell, because that your natural inclination I think it shows up in a variety of places, is to not hide under your light under a bushel. But with Saturn here, there's a natural tendency earlier on in life to have some shyness. So in the eighth house, they say that there's some restrictions with joint enterprises early in life. There might be some restrictions with groups and with inheritances or losing a loved one, like your father, probably Leo. That makes sense early in your life to divorce. You might have shyness in your intimate life earlier on in your life. But there's the good news is that this usually is when you're younger, and when you get older, you you come into your own. Your understanding of these areas of life becomes deeper and richer. You understand the cycles of life and death, what is needed to come into joint enterprises and to work with other people. You may even go into business or study metaphysical matters, which is true for you, I think. You like to dig into things that involve cycles, metaphysics, probing into the deeper issues of life with the eighth house. So it's also trining your Neptune, which makes a sense. You have a good sense of values. You have a talent for following your intuition once you've learned how to really tap into that in the way that you need to. It's trying your ascendant, which gives you high energy level, makes it easy for you to succeed in many fields. You said you have a lot of different careers. It's squaring your Uranus, so you have some feelings of inadequacy that you have to overcome, and you have problems with authority figures. And this is also your retrogrades, your Saturn, your Pluto, and your Uranus is retrograde. And that means that it's another theme of trying to follow what other people expect of you, but really rebelling against that. You march to the beat of your own drum. You have your own ways of thinking, but it takes you a while before you're able to really live into those. And that means that you're maturing a little bit later in your years because you need to understand that. But this shows that you're rebellious, you're independent, you don't think like everybody else. And I also have Saturn in retrograde and Pluto in retrograde as well. But that's where some of your rebellion comes in. Also, of course, Mars in Aquarius. So I will let you talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Saturn in the eighth. Oh my gosh, I'm going to sum it up. And it's when I see other people have it in other readings, I'm not shy to bring it up because I have it in mine. And I know a lot of people won't think to go there, but it's a lot of sexual responsibility.
What does
Um,
that mean? What does that
uh,
mean to you?
Urinary tract infections, like I'm just going to say it, like going to pee after being intimate, that's what I mean by sexual responsibility. Like just do the things, just otherwise you pay for it. Like you
Okay.
just, yeah. And it doesn't affect everybody this way, but I think it's the square to Uranus that made it extra spicy. My soul was like, you are gonna learn this lesson this lifetime, because I feel like it's been haunting me for lifetimes.
Okay.
I've, in reading my Akashic records, I've given up children for adoption, failed abortions that have cost me my life, like just all that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
wondering about that, and I wasn't sure how to bring this up. I was going to bring it up in Pluto Square because when I first ran your chart, I ran it in both house systems, and the first thing that stood out to me was in your Pluto Square, your first hit. We'll talk about that soon. Your Lilith is sitting right on top of your Saturn. And I was like, okay, Lilith here, this is a big theme. Saturn in your eighth house kind of makes sense with Lilith here. And it had something to do with sexuality.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to figure out how that kind of fits in your life. As far as you can answer this or not. Do you feel like in your younger years, was there a lot of um, experimentation with different people, or how was your relationship? How did your relationships go as far as like getting, hooking up or
Yeah. I mean, like I had a boyfriend pretty young in high school. And like one of my favorite stories is like when I was in my early 20s, that show Sex and the City hit the scene.
yeah.
And that's like Uranus and Scorpio, right? That's like sexual liberation and
Yeah.
all that. Yeah. And so, but I, like I came to the realization, like I'm not saying like I know men and women are equal, but like I'm too sensitive to, be like Samantha and and Sex
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the City.
Okay,
Like it
yeah.
just wasn't working for me. And one thing I forgot to mention too is like my Saturn return. I was like 28, 29. I was married since I was 25. I had a hard time getting pregnant. Like
Okay.
Saturn, well, it took 8 months. And when you're at that age, you're imagining it's going to just take 1 month. And Saturn was like, yeah, you need to clean up your lifestyle first. Like I was
Uh,
still partying on the weekends and like, half serious and all that. And that could also be my South Node in the fifth. But
yeah,
yeah, that was
yeah.
definitely a theme during that Saturn return.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Um,
So
all right.
yeah.
So let's move on to Uranus. Um, wait, I might have forgotten something. So I had all of these notes, and of course I lose my place sometimes. Um, I didn't mention that Mars is trining your North Node. And so you have your Mars in Aquarius, which is interesting because Aquarius rules the 11th house, and it's trining and really helping you into this energy, I think. But it encourages drive, determination, and strength when it combines positively with your North Node. Um, you need to build up your stamina and move out of your comfort zone. You're presented with opportunities through your lifetime that test your mettle. You may also be aggressive in seeking new opportunities at times. You feel compelled to take risks and forge your own destiny. Self-reliance is something that appeals to you. And also you have this ability to speak up for groups and causes about equality and the right to be exactly who you are in this life. And so I thought that was very interesting, being that Mars is in Aquarius, and your North Node and Uranus is in the 11th house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that Mars is, sextiling Venus in the South Node.
Yep.
And yeah, no, I definitely have that tendency with that South Node in Aries to be that Lone Ranger. Like, and it's not, and this is good. Like I do need to partner up. Like this is a partnering lifetime. It's not a lifetime of doing it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So especially with like that Mars in Aquarius, like that North Node in the 11th is ushering in the new Aquarian age, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's what that is. So
Yeah, in an
yeah.
equal in a way that and I find this for myself, is that I have to be in right relationship in an equal give and take with groups, like in
Yeah.
where nobody is leading, like, and that's, I think, where Age of Aquarius is minded, is very like, there's no hierarchies, there's groups of give and take, it's right relationship, there's equality there. So it's
Yeah.
not about somebody like there's a lot of parasites in the world of networking and things like that. So for me it has to be a group that is equal in give and take,
Yeah.
for me anyway. Okay, so let's go and talk about your Jupiter. I wanted to talk about your Jupiter because, oh, I missed your Uranus. Let me make sure I got your Uranus. Okay, let's talk about Uranus before Jupiter. I usually don't talk about Jupiter, but because it's your chart ruler, we have to talk about it. We just have to.
We
So
do.
your Uranus and Scorpio in the 11th house. So you are likely to stand out from the crowd. Your unique personality may be a draw for unusual, inventive, and eccentric friends. On the other hand, you may express yourself in a unique way within more conventional social circles. You may appear to be the odd one out in groups, and this can be a positive influence as you encourage others to follow their hopes and dreams and wishes. You are likely to lead by example. Others see your autonomy, which is good, your autonomy, your past life or your earlier life, and see beyond the limitations of their social expectations. So this is also about, forging your own way despite social expectations. And that's why I think your past in your pioneering spirit and going your own way can be very helpful in what you're doing now, is because you're leading in a way that helps people also say, hey, I want to be myself. I want to go into what I want to do, whether it fits into my social construct or not. These are my gifts. And that could be really helpful as you're leading, people by your example. You may wish to liberate groups of people. You want to talk
Right.
about that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because it sort of ties into that Jupiter anyway. But so my mom is also a Sag ascendant. So, in whole sign house, like we've got the same houses in the same spot. And she had me, she was 24. So our Jupiters are conjunct in the sixth together. And she is like my ally in health. You want to talk about a weirdo, like at school, my lunches were always like wildly different than all the other kids. Like, oh my God, I didn't have chocolate on Easter. I had carob. No one even knows what carob is because it's disgusting. That's why. Um, we had a little program in school in Canada where I was it was like little packets of fluoride that the kids would like swish around in their mouth and spit out in the cup. I was handing out the packets because I wasn't doing it. Like the list goes on and on. I can't even tell you. I'm accustomed to being the oddball. And I was an only child too. So, and my mom got pregnant at 39. So I have another sister, but we're 14 years apart.
Oh, wow.
We're half siblings,
Okay.
but yeah. So yeah, I totally get the black sheep. Yeah, I have
Was
a
your
yeah,
mom overprotective?
yeah, definitely,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
So would you describe her energy as a little bit smothering or?
Um, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, another important theme. I've never been vaccinated, which is quite like the talk right now. Now it's coming up to the talk, but like my whole life, it was kind of something you don't talk about.
Yeah.
Like it's just, but yeah, my mom was very big. Like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Black sheep. Like,
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting. And
yeah,
it feels like that might be where the source of some of your like independence, like feeling like you've got to pave your own way and have a little bit of independence because of that, that overprotectiveness of your mom.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Jupiter in the sixth house. So you are on a persistent search for meaning. You have the capacity to gain wisdom from your experience as you journey steadily through life. You have a strong desire for abundance. Your Mars squares Jupiter. The planet Mars and Jupiter are combining in your chart, indicating that when you are young, you can have hasty judgment, and it can sometimes lead you into hot water. You have plenty of motivation to achieve your goals, but lack proper judgment and discernment. So you may miscalculate the amount of time and energy that is needed. Sometimes you rush around trying to achieve a lot and too much, and that can be where you get into hot water because you have this excessive generosity. You in this lifetime, this is another theme I think that showed up when I was reading about your North Node or Pluto. I can't remember, but it was about needing to develop self-discipline and really understanding your boundaries and understanding what you can achieve and what you can achieve, because you have a lot of confidence and determination to succeed, but this can lead to exhaustion. And so you need to learn how to manage your resources before you can achieve many of your goals. Your resources in your health, your resources in your energy, your resources in your finances. Um, it's quincunx, the North Node. And so that means your values might not be in line with what's expected of you in society. That might have been just the rebellion that you may have displayed with your mom. I'm not sure. You can talk about that. But it's also trying the midheaven. You want adventure in your public domain and the freedom to explore unknown realms, whether this be physical realms or the realms of the mind. You will not want to hide your light under a bushel. That's where that came from. You will crave recognition for your professional achievements, which also is kind of in line with this Pluto. So you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's so funny. I think I probably used to crave social recognition way more than I do now. Like now that was probably something I did younger. Chart ruler in the 6, like health is my highest value. Like, and I've got my routines down, like to a path. Like I take, in Taurus, I take the best vitamins on the market. Like I take, the best of the best. Like I eat all organic foods. I go to the best gym. Like it's
Okay.
just all of my health routines are like top notch. And I've benefited from such an amazing health my entire life.
Yeah.
It's not an accident, it's not really a coincidence.
Yeah.
So
And you
yeah,
see
I
it.
do.
I mean, I think you see it. I mean, your genetics are probably, benefiting. I mean, but you do see it in you're a beautiful person. You see that you take care of yourself.
Thank
You know what I mean?
you.
You take care of your skin. And so that really does show up.
Oh, I love skincare.
You can
Skincare.
tell you're just like, oh, milky and like nice. Like your skin is so
Thank
beautiful.
you. I keep forgetting to throw that in there, but yeah, my health skincare routine that fits in there too. I forgot about that.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's way too high maintenance for me, probably. But yeah, okay, cool. So let's talk about, I know this took a little bit, but I love to spend most time on your really understanding yourself. Is there anything last mentions you want to talk about as far as your chart goes?
No, that sums it up. That pretty
Okay,
much
cool.
sums it up.
So we'll talk about your Pluto square. I am looking at your first hit of your Pluto square. I know we talked about I guess it was your 4th hit when you met, you said the love of your life, and we'll talk about that. I have it on the next screen, but I think it's interesting, these types of things, these hits. You had a lot of hits, by the way, much more than anybody else, like 5 hits of direct hits of the Pluto square. And usually people have like 3. So what we call in hits is like when it really directly lines up. But a lot of energy, and I found this to be true for myself, and I found this to be true in other people, is that you feel it sometimes is stronger as it approaches. And then of course it happens, the stages happen throughout time, and so it could last for a couple of years, this Pluto square, which it did for you. It could happen and all of the things unfold over time. So we're looking at a static picture of time, and I found the most interesting conjunctions and squares and what have you in this direct hit. But of course it prepared you for the time that you met that person that you're talking about, and we'll talk about that more. You didn't give me a lot of story around that, which is fine, because I like to kind of let it unfold in this conversation. But there's a lot of things that prepare you for the whole time. And like I said, I want to just say too, is that this is just these things are just themes that of course do unfold, and they don't happen all at once.
Right.
So I'm going to go through some of this, and then we'll talk about what's showed up, because there's probably a variety of things that happened during this time. This first hit happened in May 2014. And so what happens, you had a lot of, your south node which your south node, north node return happens every 18 years. And this is what was happening during this Pluto square, when this, the time to confront your own power. You're having, Pluto squares a lot of power issues, or a lot of power things come up because you're trying to transform your life so you can step into your true power. And it's also a time to discard old patterns. And so it's interesting that you had your nodal return during this time. And so what happened was it was an opportunity for you to visit some of those old themes and those past woundings that had happened. And all of these things are, and you have your Mars also here. So you were really driven to confront your past so that you could step into your future. And it's basically you have an opportunity for spiritual and social evolution at this time. You're confronting old wounds. You're moving back into things that have happened in your time, and you're becoming restless to implement changes during this time. You're getting restless about things that are happening. Also, your Chiron is conjunct a whole bunch of things here, and squaring a whole bunch of things. It's conjunct your Mercury. It's approaching conjunction here. And you're having key epiphanies. You're basically, you're encountering that voice. The voice that we talked about is learning how to contend, that you're contending with past doubts so that you can have your voice be heard. You're really contending with some of the past doubts that you've had about yourself. Chiron is quincunx your Pluto, your natal Pluto here, which means that you may feel uncomfortable with power or authority, even if your status is deserved. You're confronting your unique gifts as a leader. So you're trying to figure out where your power is at this time, where your voice is at this time. Your Chiron is squaring your Neptune. So Chiron is squaring your Neptune. You are your intuition and your Chiron is squaring your Neptune. So it means that you need to be more realistic about how your baggage and wounds impact you. And then it's also squaring your Moon, which is your intuition and your emotional wounds are intertwined with the need for inner healing. Your Chiron is conjunct your Sun. It's approaching conjunction. It's not quite there. It's a little loosely conjuncted, but you're discovering the weaknesses in your foundation of your very identity. And Mars is opposite your Chiron. So you might become kind of your natal Chiron. So you might become kind of more you're confronting deeper fears and insecurities, but they can also lead to power struggles if you aren't careful. Like I said before, Lilith is conjunct your Saturn. So your facade of control and patience can be challenged now by your deep, unexpressed emotions. Wounds and traumas of the past may not be fully realized yet, but will start to affect you in practical ways. You may suddenly want to rebel against your career and other frameworks that used to provide security. Saturn, your natal Saturn, and I'll shut up in a minute. I'm going to go through all of these and I'm going to let you talk, but I'm just going to run through these really quick. Your natal Saturn is squaring Mars, your natal Mars. And that is also an intense struggle and ego conflicts at this time. Others may see you as a threat as well. I'm not sure what was happening at this time, but I can imagine if at this time you're going into new, different work relationships, I'm curious about that. So I'm going to ask you about that when I'm done, or I'm going to make sure you talk about that. Saturn quincunx your Venus. You could further frustrate yourself by trying to manipulate others. If people are feeling threatened by you, you might want to manipulate them to value you, or you might want to show your value in a way that they're not seeing it as much as you feel like you deserve. For people to see your value, of course you deserve that, but it might be that you're trying really hard for people to see your value. And then it's opposite Jupiter, and your opportunity, you really want to grow at this time, but you're limited by all of these things happening. You want to expand, but you are limited by outside kind of things that are like all of these things that are happening during your life right now. Uranus, you're transiting Uranus. Let's find this. It is quincunx, your natal Uranus. So you may feel both relieved at the new opportunities coming at you, but the pace and the unexpected nature of the numerous shifts popping up all around you is overwhelming. Uranus is opposite Pluto as well. So you are really challenged to adapt to quick changes that are happening. It forces us to deal with situations over which we have no power. So again, that theme of power. And then Neptune is squaring your ascendant. And so things might be a little confusing as well. And then lastly, I promise, Jupiter is squaring your Pluto. So transiting Jupiter is squaring your natal Pluto. I'm just trying to find that. Jupiter, here it is. So it's squaring your natal Pluto. So again, your ambition and compulsive desire to change many things in your life, you have this desire to change, but you are confronted with all of these issues. I thought it was interesting because this is a year before you met this person, but Mars right now is opposite Venus, which sometimes means that you fall in love with somebody. So I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so we can see your pretty face and you can tell me what was going on during this whole period of probably a few years.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So it boils down to one thing. 37, I discovered online dating.
Oh.
So the theme of my life, like ever since I was 14, I've had a boyfriend ever since. Like I've never been single. It was always one relationship right after the next, right after the next, right after the next. And I got married. I got divorced. There was already somebody else lined up. And right around that time, I think, 36, 37, I took 6 months off. I intentionally took 6 months not dating anyone. And to me, that was a lot back then. Now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going on like 3 years right now. And so then I became like really motivated. I took my 6 months off and I was going to meet somebody like that. I was just going to meet somebody. And then I went like all that Mars masculine energy that I have. I was going to find the one. And it was ridiculous. Like I was primed for that Chiron hitting my sun for a healing crisis. Like I didn't know that's what I was heading towards, but that's what I was heading towards because that was just out of control. Like you need to love yourself first. Like you need to, there's just before you can jump into anything else. But it was like ridiculous. It was like every night that I didn't have my daughter, my calendar was filled up. I was going out on a date,
Yeah.
And it was like spinning out of control. Like it was just all this distraction. My work was okay-ish because it's a huge time consumption. Like you got to get your hair and your makeup. You're always going out in restaurants and probably too much alcohol. And yeah, it was a huge time consumer. Anyway, that was, I want to say like that was the main, there's a few, everything was just primed for it not to go right too. Like you said, like Jupiter squaring Pluto, Uranus opposing Pluto. Like it was a mess. Like it was my biggest complaint or observation was that it was never even. Like I would meet someone and it was either like, I really, really like them, or it was like, they like me way more than I like them. Like,
Okay.
it was that.
That's where the
constantly.
imbalance comes from, that power show. I was like wondering like where that showed up. So that makes sense around like wanting somebody to like you more, they didn't like you. So there was always that influx of power over, power under.
Yep.
That's interesting. And then I wanted to ask about that threat. Did you feel like other women, feeling like you were a threat, or was it other men? Like
just all the lower vibrational, you name it, jealousy, all of it, like,
okay.
Oh gosh, where do I even say that? Like, on Instagram, or um like you can tell when a guy is online, like in the direct messaging, I'd be like sneaking up. They told me they were busy that night, or they lost their phone, but they're still online. Like, just all the drama. Just-
When did you
I
get
was
divorced?
I was completely unawake spiritually, like nada, like just
Okay.
nothing. Like, I was just, yeah.
When did you get divorced?
I was 32.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
So that was 5 years
32.
earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting because like I talk to people about I used to be an online like pretty aggressive like you are like I approached it as interviews. I was like I gotta have 100 interviews before I find anybody, and so I'd go through
Exactly.
periods. But it's been a really long time, and I sometimes talk to people about online dating, and I'm just like I can't even imagine what it's like now because before it was crazy. Oh my God.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
what was your career at that time?
I was still a chiropractor. And in 2013, I stumbled upon, like, my mom introduced me to a network marketing company. So it's a company that's called New Skin. It was anti-aging, and it's direct sales. So, so you partner up with them, they produce all the products, and you do the marketing. And you can build teams of salespeople who will do that too. And so I was doing both those things at the time.
Okay. All right. So I thought that there might be
It's
some kind of
Yeah.
story around that, but it doesn't sound like I think it sounds like it was mainly all of your dating stuff that you feel like was the Pluto
It
square.
didn't it was mainly all the dating stuff. The business stuff, it all boiled down in 2017. Things just
Okay.
exploded. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so that might be your Neptune square, a little bit near. Okay, so I want to just bring up the chart that you had mentioned. Oh, wait, let me share my screen because you don't can't see it. That you had mentioned was you met the love of your life, which
Yeah. Yeah.
here, as you can see, let me see if I can get this annotation. It's a little bit easier for people to see. Right here, your north node is right on your
On my
midheaven.
midheaven. Yeah.
And sometimes that means career, but it also means, like you said, it could mean
In Libra.
in
Yeah.
Libra relationships. And then I also wanted to point out Uranus is going to show up here longer, but it's also like your Venus and Uranus is conjunct here. And
Yeah.
then Chiron is coming into, really more closer to Mercury and your sun, or actually
Yeah.
your sun more. And so I wanted to hear your story about the love of your life.
Yeah, yeah. And that's also a Venus retrograde in Leo, and Venus retrogrades tends to bring back past lovers like that. Yeah, so I was at the end of my rope with the online dating. Okay. I was like, this isn't working. So it was in the summer, it was Leo season, it was August, and my parents vacation every year to the magical, fantastical French island called St. Bart's in the
Oh,
Caribbean.
wow.
And I had gone with them, in the past, but at the time my daughter was 8 years old. So the four of us, we were trekking down there to go on vacation. And we have friends who live there. And the day one that I arrived, my girlfriend picks me up in her Jeep. It's such a beautiful island. It's so magical. It's so magical. And she's like, I have friends from Germany arriving. We're going to pick them up. Let's go. I was like, what? I thought we were having a girls' week. Like, I didn't know there were guys coming from Germany. What is this? Lord and behold, we turn up at the airport, and there's my Henry. Like, okay. And this was crazy. Like, we spend like 2 weeks in paradise, like with friends and beach parties and
Prime.
restaurants, and just like dreamy, dreamy, dreamy. And he's 11 years younger than me. Like, I never thought this was going to go anywhere. Like, I was like, this is just 2 weeks and that's it, right? He was 26. I was 38 at the time. But when you match up our synastry, like his Venus in Libra is right on my Pluto. It was like the deepest, most intimate. It was like a life-changing relationship for both of us. Like, it forever changed us both.
Yeah.
His moon is opposing my sun. His moon is trining my Jupiter. Like there's just a lot of like that soulmate, energy.
Yeah.
And also, this is another interesting theme in my life that I don't know why that's happening, but every 7 years, the asteroid Juno meets up with Jupiter, right? And Juno and Jupiter were like that sacred partnership, that sacred marriage, once every 7 years. And there was a Juno-Jupiter conjunction
It was
at that
destiny.
time.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it was prime perfect because, when you're on vacation and you are like, oh, he's younger than me, you can totally be free to be yourself because you're like, I don't really need to worry about anything because it's going to be a fling and we're going to have fun. And it's just totally abandonment of your, like, all your stuff.
Yeah. And then, I get back home to the US and he goes back to Germany and we just never stopped talking for like about a year and a half. We had a long distance relationship. He would come to Chicago and he moved to London in the UK to do his master's. So I would travel to London. Oh my God. Like it was just this like fairy tale romance in the most beautiful places on earth. And then we broke up at the Juno-Jupiter square. And that was another boatload in my chart. Like it was April 26, 2017. Uranus is right on that south node and on that Venus. And there's a lovely little Mercury retrograde that comes and because Mercury rules my 7th house of relation. I've always gotten bit in Mercury retrogrades. Always, always, always. And that's why. Yeah. And so, but that's what that breakup, like Uranus is the great awakener. And so that's what woke me up spiritually. Like that was a rapid, like 0 to 60. I went through 2 years of a terrible dark night of the soul. And it was a healing crisis. It was really healing those abandonment issues that why aren't things ever working out in my relationships? And that was really, that was the trigger for that.
Having to go through so much loss just to like come into your own.
Yes.
It's cruel sometimes.
So cruel, so necessary, so necessary.
All right, let me share again. We're going to go and talk about your Neptune square, which is, it sounds like your Neptune square was, your first hit was in May, a year later, 2018. And it sounds like to me that your dark night of the soul was still during this time. Is that correct?
It's correct. It's correct. And this is kind of the interesting piece where I ended up in Bali. Bali being like, how Neptune rules faraway places. Like, I ended up pretty much at the farthest away place.
Oh my gosh.
May 2018, I was in Bali.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, so this is interesting because Pluto right now is squaring your Venus, but it is coming into the square and it's still happening. Like it's moving past the square.
I got one more hit. Got one more hit.
So I thought that was very interesting because you haven't, you're just in March 21st is your Saturn opposition, your first hit of Saturn opposition, which is just like virtually like a couple of weeks away. And so I thought this was very interesting because you're still going through the lessons, I guess, of the Pluto squaring Venus. And it's really, you're having a major remodeling, reconstruction, demolition, and dismantling of your core fears. The old is disintegrating and something brand new is born in its place. So it sounds like you're really coming into your spirituality because of this. Like you said, it says, be prepared to surrender what is outdated and no longer of value to your evolution and spiritual growth. Perfectly timed. You may feel a profound loss, lack, or intense limitation during this time. This is because, there's greater pathways towards self-love and empowerment, which is something that you're learning on this journey. It's also Pluto is squaring your nodes. Again, your nodes are, of course, everything that happens to Venus happens to your nodes.
Separate them.
Your Chiron. Yep. So you have an intense need to exert your willpower in pursuit of a path of advancement. In spite of this, you find obstacles which will prohibit you from moving forward in the direction you feel compelled to go. Your focus may become intense and obsessive, but exerting your will on others or the world around you doesn't yield the results you were hoping for. So less is more right now. Adjustments to your strategy needs to be made. You are being brought into alignment with your destiny. It may not align exactly the way you think it should, and you need to be open to detours and other options that come in, which I'm sure you are dealing with now. Your North Node is conjunct your Saturn. So you're experiencing powerful karmic lessons. You may feel that as divinely ordained, doors are opening and closing during this time. Your nodes are squaring the Uranus, your natal Uranus. You will feel the tension between your desire for independence and change and the desire to remain comfortable. This will eventually be a catalyst for you to embrace the tumultuous energy of this time of transition and reap the benefit of risks taken now. Uranus here is also conjuncting a whole bunch of things, right? So you're going through highs and lows right
Oh
now
my
of
gosh. Yeah.
unexpected changes that are happening, things that are unpredictable, healing moments that are unpredictable. You might meet like healers, unexpected healers or teachers during this time. You have sudden insights into your karmic patterns. You tend to attract exciting people into your life. You have the beginning of new and different relationships. And it's interesting, you might find perhaps a partner may find you might end a relationship, but there might be beginnings of new relationships. Your Uranus is also, it's where's your midheaven? It says Uranus is quincunx your midheaven, so it's a little bit out of alignment with your midheaven. So you're ready for a drastic change, but you're not quite hitting your target right at this moment during this Neptune squared age 41. Your Chiron is opposite, or the Chiron is opposite, transiting Chiron is opposite your midheaven. So you're finding greater strength and integration by accepting your past wounds and imperfections. This could have a detrimental effect on your career if you aren't careful. So, you're changing your career path, which I think it sounds like you are doing the right thing, because it's leading you into your true path. Your Neptune is conjunct Mercury very closely, tightly conjunct. So you're not sure what you're doing right now. There's a lot of confusion. Neptune squaring Neptune. There's a lot of confusion. You shouldn't make any life-changing decisions because you might be misinformed. Your Neptune is also squaring your moon. So you could have mood swings. Your unconscious is you have strange sensations and paranoia during this time. It's a very confusing time. And then Saturn is squaring, transiting Saturn is squaring your Pluto. So it marks a difficult period of your life due to the circumstances or people around you. It is very difficult for you to make the changes you would like in the outside world. And then Jupiter is also conjunct right here. It's loosely conjunct your Uranus. So it's bringing up all sorts of opportunities for you to expand your life in knowledge and in ways that you aren't expecting.
Oh my gosh. It was a hot mess, to put it mildly. Yeah. One other thing that we can't see on that chart is that my secondary progressed sun was right on that Uranus and Chiron too, at the very end degrees. I mean, it was like, yeah, that's the healing crisis, the sun on Chiron. And throw in Uranus in there for fun, you know. Yeah, it was I just could not pull myself out of this depression.
Yeah.
And luckily so this is an interesting transit. So when that breakup happened, which was April 2017, that was the triggering event for a lot of this. Saturn was taking a retrograde at 26 degrees of Sagittarius, and that is the center of the galaxy. And whenever we have outer planets at the center of the galaxy with that lined up with that black hole, like they're extra, extra powerful. And Saturn was making a quincunx to my natal Jupiter. And my little network marketing anti-aging business blew up, like blew up. Like I was making $15,000 per month in
What?
commission check, laying on my couch, depressed. Like, yeah, my team just exploded. And that was the money I needed to get me through, because there's no way I could have held a 9-to-5 job. I was like on my I would like get up in the morning, get my daughter breakfast, get her off to school for 9, come back home, crawl into bed, meditate all day, 30 to go pick her up. Like it was bad. It was bad. It was just, yeah, it was like 2 years of really solid, and then like the Chiron course through Astro Butterfly, she mentioned plant medicine in there. And I was like, what is this plant medicine stuff? And that's what pulled me out of it, believe it or not. Like ayahuasca, like I did not know what else to do. I tried everything. I spent $40,000 on psychologists, on EMDR, PTSD, because a breakup can create PTSD. I was like, no way, like soldiers have PTSD from going to war, right? Not a breakup. But yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's triggering all of your childhood stuff, probably. Yes. Or
all of it. Like everything was up for review. And I was doing the plant medicine to heal my breakup. No, that's not the root cause. That's a symptom of the root cause, Yeah. So, but then then eventually in 2020, really 2019, towards the end, 2020, things started getting better. Okay. But yeah, it was a very, very difficult period.
So interestingly, I had a very difficult period too, just probably at the same time for different reasons. But I just recently did ayahuasca. It was more toward the end of my healing journey, but how many times did you do it? Was that the big catalyst for your healing, you think?
Oh my gosh, it was a game changer. It was a big, big, big. I did it 3 times because there's nobody in my area. I have to fly to Florida. There's a wonderful little health center called Soul Quest in Orlando. Bless them, really.
Okay. So you did it by yourself, or?
Yep. Got myself on a plane. I just had no other option.
I did it in a circle, and
there was a ton of people. It was a group thing.
Okay, good. I was like, I did it in a group, and it was a women's group, and I'm actually creating a project around my experience, because it was a creative project, because it was very mind expanding, and really does hit you where it needs, where you need to be hit during the time. So it's different for everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it is, I will attest that it is very powerful and very healing.
That's where I got my whole birth story. Like I had heard the story of my birth, but I was like, Mom, what the heck happened when I was born? Like I relived the whole thing. And I knew enough about astrology to know where it was going on in my chart. I was like, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
My heart just goes out to you so much, because I know how hard that is. And especially when you have a child, because I have my child is 10, and when you're depressed and you were single and like trying to like function, and they almost like help you function, because otherwise without them you would have totally gone.
Oh my God. I don't think I'd still be here if it wasn't for her. Like she became my reason to keep getting up in the morning. Yeah. And me, I wasn't taking any medication. I wouldn't go on the antidepressant. Like I was roughing it.
Yeah. Oh God. It's difficult to go through those periods, but when you come out of them, I think you recognize how wonderful it was to have the chance to go through them, even though like sometimes you think, oh, I would never want to go through that again. It really does change something fundamentally inside of you that you wouldn't have been able to experience without that period, right?
Yeah, and it's like the course on, Astro Butterfly's Chiron course. I was like, holy cow, I'm a shaman. Like if I lived 1,000 years ago and I was in a tribe, the local shaman would have spotted me and like, but you're all alone on your couch in your home and you're not in a tribe and no one knows what's wrong with you. People were like, it's just a breakup, snap out of it. I was like, it's not, I can't snap out of it. Like it was a really deep soul healing, like,
It wasn't
yeah,
just a breakup.
it
No.
wasn't just a breakup. And it was something that stemmed a few lifetimes too. Like this was past life.
Right.
Yeah, this was a lot. This was a lot.
So I took the Chiron course too, but we might have taken it at different years. When did you take
I
yours?
took it in 2018.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Or no, 19. Sorry, 19.
Mine was in 2020, and I
Okay.
felt that journey was what brought me to really dig deep into astrology
Yeah.
after that course. And I didn't really learn. I did that started learning, but I started obsessively like digging in.
Yeah.
I think it was 2020. Yeah. Yeah. I went to an energy healer, and then right after that, I went to Chiron course. And I had been having a dark night of the soul for a couple of years myself, and so it was like, I gotta figure this out. And by the time the pandemic hit, I don't know about you, but I was like, oh,
I was better. I was actually getting better. Most of the people were like, I was used to the spending so much time home alone. Like I was, I had been prepared for this.
exactly. That's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's move on. So we're going to talk about stuff that's happening right now. So this
Yeah.
stuff is just in process. So we're just going to go over some themes, and then of course we're not going to be able to really know what's, I mean, you might be able to feel some of it happening, but
Yeah.
you're in the midst of it,
There,
right?
there,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
in the midst of this right now, and it ties into, I was joking because the whole of us, the team of Age of Aquarius, like we all have an email thread together where we all sort of correspond. And I was joking because I was literally at the end of 2020, I was literally celebrating Neptune moving off of the 18th degree of Pisces because that square to my moon has been brutal. I'll just go over that real quickly.
Okay.
And I was all excited because I was like, yay, finally, Neptune never ever to return again to the 18th degree of Pisces, moving on. But now I knew I was in my Saturn opposition and Uranus opposition squaring at the same time. So I was thinking, yay, this is going to be a brand new problem. Who cares? Like, I just want the pain spot to change, right?
Yeah.
And no, it's a continuation. It's the same problem getting worse.
Oh no.
Gosh.
Well,
Yeah. So,
yeah, I was reading a little bit because you did say that you had some health issues,
yeah.
and I was reading about this south node conjuncting your moon, and I maybe that's what it was, but yeah, no, there's something else that I read. This is your health thing. Yes, south node conjuncting your moon.
Well, it was also like Neptune squaring that moon for 18 months.
Yeah.
So the moon, you know how every single planet represents an organ in the body. And so the moon is the womb, the uterus. And
Mhm.
especially when it's in the first house like that and conjunct Neptune. And, Neptune is like rules water. So what am I having? I was just having these like abundant periods, like for like it started 18 months ago, but really the last 6 months it's like, oh my gosh, like I need to do something. And I like, with all my masculine planets, like I work out a ton. It turns out like I have way too much testosterone, not enough estrogen, like just all of my hormones are all out of balance. And so again, like I thought
Not
things,
funny, but
not funny, but it's so funny when you look at this, like you can't make this up. You're just like, wow, that's the transits. But I thought it was going to get better once Neptune was leaving. But on February 17th, when we had the square, the Saturn square Uranus, because it's so tight, because I have it in my chart and it's directly opposing it, like I was like, I need to go to the hospital. Like it just hit me that hard.
Ugh,
Yeah. So I had all the blood tests done and I have an ultrasound up and coming. So I'm not excited about that March 21st Saturn opposition because it's that same theme, that sexual responsibility that, it's all kind of tied into,
yeah.
yeah,
Ugh.
taking care of my sexual organs this time.
Oh my gosh. So do you think it might be endometriosis or do you
I
not know?
think it might be fibroids.
Fibroids. Oh,
Yeah, something like that. I'm taking all of the like holistic, trying to rebalance all my hormones. I'm working with a naturopath as well. Um, but yeah, I have to go for an ultrasound. And the blood work is fine. Everything is fine, except I'm super anemic, which will
oh
make you
yeah.
feel really bad.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
used to be
that's
anemic too.
that's legit the theme.
Okay. Well, at least you're getting to the bottom of it. So funny enough, South Node conjunct your Neptune right now. It's like anything that's been hidden or repressed comes out, and it's
Exactly.
forced to be acknowledged and healed before we can finally let go and move on.
Yeah.
And your nodes are also squaring your natal Mercury, which is you may become restless with your routines and you might feel like they're infringing upon your independence. Um, your South Node is conjunct your ascendant. I think this is really interesting because of the Age of Aquarius group, is that a meeting with karmic non-random personalities that transforms your life. And so you're kind of meeting a lot of different spiritual people right now. And so I don't know how many of them are karmic, but it was very interesting to see all of our karmic connections in our chart, because we have some, the connections of my North Node is actually on your ascendant, and my South Node is, so it's pretty much the opposite. And there's a lot of different
Yeah.
connections in our chart, that are interesting. So I might be one of those non-random people that come into your life. Who knows? I
That's
also
right.
Yeah, I also met another person in our group, and I guess I didn't realize this, but I guess Pisces people have, we have some interesting things, but she's a lot older, but we have we have a lot of just different connections too. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? But yeah, so it's interesting to notice that you have this, meeting a lot of people that might be, like you said, you on your road to your North Node, which is
Yep.
collaboration and meeting people that you can work with, and meeting people that are going to be on your path toward this, new future. I can imagine it's happening right now. And then of course this South Node on your moon is, we already talked about your health, and you also mentioned the squaring Neptune. I also have Neptune. I have Jupiter on the 21 degrees on Jupiter. So mine's going to be like growth or something, more confusion or more growth. I don't know what it is. Now I had a little bit of a taste. It was an expansion of spirituality and meeting spiritual people in my life. So it's interesting.
It is. It is. You'll have to keep me posted because I've got Neptune running over my sun pretty soon.
Yeah.
It's just like it's
Yeah.
not one thing; it's
On
the
your
next.
son.
Yeah. So we'll have to exchange notes.
I know, and see how that
Yep.
shows up. Yeah, I feel like I had mine because my son is an Aquarius, so it passed over. Something was passing over, Neptune related when I had my daughter, and then also my husband when we got married. So yeah, it's interesting. I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, we'll have to share notes. It's funny when you're not into astrology, and then you go back and you look at the transits. Um, sometimes the time periods are kind of confusing, so you're not really sure what it was. But now that I'm following the transits, I'm like, oh my God, this is how it feels. So it's hard to look at the
Exactly.
past.
It's just another, level of consciousness when you're aware.
Yeah, and so we talked about your Pluto squaring your nose and Pluto squaring your Venus, but right now Pluto is squaring your Chiron. So that means you may become frustrated with others now as you feel compelled to maintain control and authority, but it also may mean that you're healing your past traumas means challenging your assumptions about control, power, and authority and what that means in your life. And then Pluto is squaring Lilith. Your desire for independence and dramatic transformation can bring you into alignment with your wild, independent inner nature. You may have to overcome insecurities and repressed desires to finally embrace your power and your sexuality. Uranus right now is quincunx your ascendant. You may feel an unstable sense of not knowing exactly who you are. You may also try to awaken to a new identity instead of values and beliefs, but it might be more challenging than you initially thought. And then Uranus is opposing Uranus, and Uranus is square Saturn. We've already talked about that, but there's a lot of restrictions happening to you in your life, which is even stronger in your life than perhaps others because you have that natally. You may want to free yourself on one hand, and on the other, without realizing it, you're complicating your life. So beware of that tendency to want to make a lot of changes and whether that's really true to your purpose. Jupiter is also squaring Jupiter, so it gives you a tendency toward excess that can make it extremely hard to keep up with things and stop them from getting out of control. Maybe piling too much responsibilities on your plate or trying to achieve too much at this time. You may think that you have plenty of money and resources, but you may notice that you're depleted or your resources are depleted. So you have to be careful about that. And then you have Lilith is opposite of Uranus right now, of your natal Uranus. You may go from euphoria to rage. I don't know what your relationship to rage is, so I don't know if that's what it's expressing, but you're trying to express your individuality in ways that reveal untapped anger or edginess. Lilith is quincunx Pluto. Your deep desire to express your true inner nature may be limited by fears and past traumas you haven't let go of yet. But during this time, you can work through power issues on a deeper level. So it sounds like right now, maybe your health issues are really challenging you to really dig deeper into those feelings of surrender.
Yeah, that's the other piece. There's the medical piece, but then like the womb, like we store so many negative emotions there. And so I'm also working on, chakra realignment. And I mean, there's something like it's a reflection of how the energy is flowing and what's going on. So
Yeah.
I'm working on clearing a lot of energy out of there at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, it's also squaring Saturn, so Lilith. So you might feel angst as you establish your own power and authority in a world that isn't accepting of your inner nature, your inner womb. Like you're coming into a sense of acceptance and making sure that you're, I think, is secure. And no matter what other people think or other people feel, really coming into your own security within yourself and your authority and your power.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
And then Chiron is opposite Pluto. I have Chiron opposite Pluto too. And it is, feel the feelings of disempowerment and how much control we have, and really finding your own authoritative voice. I'm going through for myself, and I've gone through all of my transits, but really, and it was after the last one, just this year is really just 100% self-love and self-acceptance. And really I'm concentrating on what I want to do and I have some issues with creativity and power, and my North Node is in the second house, and really feeling secure within my own sense of value. So for me, it's around not caring, just not caring. I don't need any feedback from other people. I'm doing what I need to do, and I'm finding joy in what I need to do, and not really caring about other people. It's challenging and true, but that's the authoritative voice, I think.
Yeah, it's very liberating. In our 20s, I feel like we're keeping up with the Joneses, and now it's like,
Forget, who cares?
Own authority, becoming our own authority.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's move on to, oops, what happened? Oh, I was in the Uranus opposition. Let me just get this, share. Sorry. So oops, I stopped sharing. Okay. So the Uranus opposition is in May. So you're just like coming one after the other.
But that's the thing. It's hard for me to separate them all. They all seem like one.
They shouldn't be separated. I mean, really, we're just looking at them separately, but they're not really supposed to be separated, I don't think.
I've not had the first, it came real close, before the last retrograde, the Uranus opposition, but it hasn't yet. So, and it's in the 6th house of health. Yeah, I kind of am getting a heads up of the theme.
I know. Look at all of these planets here.
I know. I'm a little bit excited about, these eclipses in my 7th house. That's, the last 18 years ago, I got married. Last time that happened. So yeah, eclipses in the 7th house are a big deal.
Yeah. Interesting. Because it does seem like there's, your Venus is right on, your descendant, which is meeting another person. And it might be that you're meeting other, people that are significant. It doesn't necessarily have to mean a relationship, but it could mean, a lot of different types of relationships, or it could mean coming back to your own, whatever you need to come back to. Venus is also conjunct Lilith and your North Node. So that might just be a reintegration of all of the lessons you've been learning too, and coming into alignment with yourself. So I'm very eager to hear. We should do like a review
follow up
update. Because I am so interested in how all this stuff happens in my 8th house, because my South Node is in my 8th house. So I got a lot of stuff going on in past lives of 8th house things. So I kind of understand that Saturn stuff, but this is going to be interesting. So your South Node is conjunct your ascendant, which is it's already there, but it's even very much closer to your ascendant. And we've already talked about that. The North Node is quincunx your Uranus. Your instincts are taking you in a new direction with erratic bursts of energy. You may feel restless and ready for change. Your Venus is conjunct your descendant. We just talked about that. More sociable, closer bonding with a partner, or you're likely to attract your perfect partner. That could happen. Who knows? And then maybe you'll be ready for you to kind of, in partnership, live in a more, right way with your equality lessons that you've learned, and, breaking that pattern of South Node relationships. It could happen. Your midheaven is conjunct North Node. Where's your midheaven here?
1 degree of 1 degree of Libra.
Conjunct your North Node right now. So that could be that. I just thought that was interesting because it's a conjunction. It moves pretty quickly, but clearly what you're doing right now is moving you toward your destiny.
And I had Angelina, Astro Butterfly, wished me a happy birthday, and we had a quick little chat. I'm really excited about 2023. 2023 is going to be a good year for me because within days of my birth, Venus on that south node turned retrograde. So in my secondary progressed chart, Venus has been retrograde my whole life. And in 2023, she turns direct. Like, oh my gosh, she was like, that's a big deal. I'm like, I know.
That's
And
awesome.
my Mars, my progressed Mars will land at 0 degrees of Aries. It's been in Pisces, like again, what feels like my whole life. And
Yes.
so, I'm going to have like a Mars in dignity, a direct Venus. There's that Jupiter Juno conjunction happening again once every 7 years. Anyway, it's just, I feel like my health will be in great order by then.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I can imagine Mars going into Aries is that, I mean, and like we talked about, you have 10th house themes, and it's taking you a bit to, I guess, for you to feel like you're in,
Yeah.
achieving the success. But I can imagine Mars in Aries is going to be a game changer for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Cool. So Lilith is opposite Uranus. Oh wait, no, that's not. That's an old story. Let's leave Lilith behind. Um, Chiron is quincunx your Uranus. So, um, you need to find a balance between trusting your inner voice and unique vision and the power of community. Which is interesting because you're in this community part now. So it feels like you're coming into your own power and the give and take that happens. This is an important time to accept your unique attributes and allow yourself to be embraced by community. That's cool. Uranus is squaring Saturn. Of course, that's a continuing transit. Uranus is quincunx Pluto. You may be trying to jump into a new opportunity before fully uprooting yourself from a present situation. So that might be some of your health issues that you need to clear up. You may also be chasing excitement and mental stimulation to avoid a deeper nagging feeling that something beneath the surface isn't quite right. Jupiter is quincunx your midheaven. Your optimism and self-assurance are strengthened at this time. You are bursting at the seams to achieve your goals and advance your career. You may be reaching too far, too much, too soon. Who knows? That's something that you have to figure out as you're integrating the right approach. Neptune is conjunct your sun. That's a continuing transit, and quincunx your north node. You might be operating from wishful thinking and fantasy than true enlightenment. You may also think you've found your spiritual base, but are susceptible to getting carried away with groupthink and self-delusion. So, just balancing that energy as you're moving into your destiny with the community, and really trying to keep, I think really just trying to, the way that I would interpret it, trying to be quiet at times and listening to your own voice within the community, and really just having a clear sense of your own authority so that you
Yeah.
don't lose that, right?
I don't know if you've mentioned it. There's 2 dates each year that I really pay attention to, and it's the date that Saturn turns retrograde and turns direct. And I pay attention to what degree that happens on. And so Saturn's going to turn retrograde at 13 degrees of Aquarius in May. And that's making an exact trine to that Pluto, because
Uh-huh.
it hangs out on that degree longer. And so if you have any planets, that's worth marking in your calendar.
And
That's
I'm an Aquarius, and so that's important for me. Okay.
yes, especially if you have anything at 13 of the fixed signs. But every year, and I think like then it's going to retrograde back onto 6 degrees of Aquarius, and that turns direct in October, I think it is. But those 2 dates each year, like, because it's Saturn's like the manifester.
Yeah. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's something new I haven't considered. I was born under a Mercury retrograde, and I've started to notice that Mercury retrogrades are, important for me, and probably better for me than other people. Saturn retrogrades, I do have Saturn retrograde in my chart, and so that's going to be interesting for me to look at. Mine is at 9 degrees, and it's in Cancer. in
Yeah.
the ninth house. So
Yeah. In
yeah.
September 2019, Saturn turned direct at 13 degrees of Capricorn, making an exact square to that Pluto. One of my businesses totally fell apart. I was like, what? Why is everybody quitting? What's going on? That's what's going on. It was time to move on to astrology. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think my Pluto is at 8 degrees of Libra. It's not very far from yours.
Not very far.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that was your networking group. It just fell
Yeah.
apart.
My network marketing business just fell apart. I sold it. So I had like a fire sale.
Oh my God. But you made so much money for
I made
a
so
while.
much money. I made so much money with it, but I was out of resonance with it. Like that was a business when I was not awake spiritually. But now that I was, I had other gifts I had to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's it. And I'm really excited to have shared this interview with you. And I really do want to keep tabs and see what's happening and maybe do my first review to see what's happening. It was really great to have you come in because you're the first person who hasn't gone through everything. Like you're still having some things that are outstanding and so it was really great to have you. And I wanted to just tell everybody quickly, let me just stop sharing so that I can just look at you for a minute. I just wanted to tell everybody quickly that I'm still doing, I want to do these interviews for a while. It helps me learn. And I think it helps a lot of people who are going through these transits or even well past these transits really understand this time. I've heard from other people that it's extremely healing for people to create narratives around their life so that they can understand it more fully so they can keep growing into the future. So if you want to be part of this interview series, you don't have to have any knowledge of astrology. I'll go through your charts. I'll bring up all of the things that I see. And I'd love to have you. So contact me. I'll leave my the link of my contact information below this video. Also leave Caroline's link to her business because you do Akashic Records, which is something I've really been interested in, and we've had conversations about that. And so I think it's a really great opportunity for anybody who might be interested in that, having their Akashic Records read. Can you tell the audience just really briefly about that and what that entails and how that works so that they know the value of something like that?
Yep. So the Akashic Records is it's a database of every single choice that your soul has ever made through its many incarnations. And we're interested in those negative choices that you've done, in the past that are still affecting you. They're still stuck in your energy field. And I always tell people, if no other incentive but to clear your Akashic record is you want to make sure that in your next lifetime, you don't repeat what you've been through in this lifetime. Like you really want to clear up the karmic slate because we are on these karmic loops and patterns that will, keep on happening. And so, you can feel the difference once it's literally called raising your vibration, getting rid of lower energetic baggage that has been plaguing us for a very long time. Your soul vibration rate goes up. Like you let go of so much unneeded baggage. My biggest example that I give people are like the vows, and vows are only one category of many, many, many blocks that we look at. But people with vows of chastity, they struggle having children, for example. Like it's not anything to do, that's how it translates into 3D life. Vows of poverty, struggle building wealth. And you won't know that. It's just something that's there that needs to be cleared.
And you said you also do astrological readings, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. I do. I love astrology.
I do too. I love the way that you combine those, the things that you talked about regarding, the ways that you said, when you said the vow of poverty, you found that in your astrological records. And so I'm just curious how you mix those both. Do you do it at the same time or is that separate?
I don't do them at the same time,
Okay.
but I can't help but like, I get their birthday. So I usually take a little peek because there's always a correlation. There's
Yeah.
always a correlation. It
Yeah.
expresses itself in the chart in different ways, but yeah, there's always a
Okay.
correlation between the two.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess we'll wrap up now. I'm going to stop this video, but we'll say goodbye afterwards. But thank you
Okay.
so much. I hope you found this
Thank you.
interview useful for you. And like I said, I hope that you come back and watch more interviews or reach out to me if you're interested in contributing to this interview series. Thank you. Bye.